Hello everyone, it's Vincent here, and today I wanted to talk with you about something that I feel very strongly and something that I think is very important with all these new games coming out, especially all these new tabletop role-playing games coming out. It's very important to know why and to understand why you're playing the tabletop RPG that you're playing and why you should go to another one, or why you should play this one over another one, because there's all these different systems, D6 and D20 systems. You have degrees of success and failure. You have different tropes. You have the drama, the science, the fantasy. So it's you have to, when there's so many different games in the market, you have to differentiate yourself somehow. You have to be different. If you're not different, then people are just going to automatically discredit yours and go to the more popular games such as Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, which I both really enjoy those games personally. Um, but yeah, I like whenever I created Otherworlds, I had to give it a reason. Why should Otherworlds exist when people can just play D&D and Pathfinder when they have a major corporation backing them, giving them, amazing artwork, and they have a way bigger budget than I do for Otherworlds, and that is certain, at least at this point. But I really wanted to talk with all of you as to why you should give Otherworlds a chance and why you should look more into it and how it differentiates itself from these other role-playing games. Number one, and also I'm going off of memory, so yeah, if I seem kind of jumbled, it's because I'm not the best at memorizing things, but we're gonna try. So number one, creative combat. So one thing I really cannot stand in role-playing games is how it doesn't incentivize you to be creative whenever you're in combat, hence the name creative combat. So an example of this is, say you're playing a barbarian and you are punching some guy unarmed, it deals a set amount of damage. Fair enough. But what if you want to punch him right underneath the belt? What if you want to like gouge his eyes out? There's a lot of systems that, of course, like in gameplay, you can do these things, but unfortunately, they're not reflected well in the gameplay or in the game mechanics itself. So, for example, I was watching a D&D 5th edition, gameplay, and they had a character that literally stepped on a guy's nuts as hard as he could. He curb stomped this guy's nuts, and it dealt the same amount of damage as him just punching him. No matter what he was describing story-wise and flavor-wise, which is awesome. I love adding, I'm a firm believer that you can add story to combat. It doesn't have to be just straight rolls and, oh, you take 2 damage. I like being descriptive with that, and I feel like you're missing out on something if that's not also reflected mechanically in the game terms. So Otherworlds has a very simple, easy to use system that helps you do that. It's very easy to do by memory, which gets to my second point, which is you don't need the book to play the game. Aside from leveling up and sort of choosing what you want for your classes, for playing the game itself, just sitting there playing with your characters, the game is so streamlined and intuitive that once you get a grasp of the game, you won't even need the book, aside from leveling up your characters, like I said previously. But basically, I don't ever need the book. My fellow World Masters, they don't have a book on them that they can reference, and they don't need it. It's just so simple. Even our World Master screens that we use that have all these different charts inside of it, the charts are so intuitive and so easy that you don't even need those for the game, and if you use them, it's like, oh, well, that's easy to remember. So the game is very much built on that premise, which brings me to my third point. Not sure if you're aware of this or not, but different people have a capacity of how much they can think at once before they start having to suck up that attention and bring it somewhere else. It's like in Magic the Gathering, it's known as onboard complexity, which is, when you first start the game off and you just have 2 lands and a 2/2 creature, it's very simple to keep up with. But at the end of the game, if you end up with 30 things on the battlefield, it's very hard to keep in mind. And so this can kind of happen in some tabletop role-playing games where you have to keep in mind all these different modifiers that's going on, these different timing things, and how long this lasts and how long this lasts. That Otherworlds is treated in such a way to where it's built to keep you putting those memory issues in the right areas. Um, the complexity is built in part of strategizing on, should you use this or should you use this? And neither one of those options is always the right one. So you have to pick and choose what you want to do. The complexity doesn't lie in you having rely. The complexity does not rely on you having to have a really good memory, because I do not. The complexity relies on your strategy. And so when you have a game that just spams complexity at both your strategy and of what you have to remember, then it really just it can give you a headache over time. It can just really make the gameplay less enjoyable, because you're kind of getting sucked out of the story just trying to think about everything going on, and you're like, oh snap, I forgot about this and I forgot about that, and it kind of ruins that moment for you. Which brings me to my fourth point. There is a cut down on modifiers and what you have to remember. These incremental little stat bonuses here and there. It's very streamlined in this game, and I very much take note of it, because I won't name any names, but some games can get a little bit out of hand, just a tiny bit, where they have 8 different bonuses that you have to keep up with, and then it gets changed to 5 different bonuses, and then 9, and it keeps fluctuating, and you keep having to add and subtract little numbers here and there. So it's very much for Otherworlds, it's set up in such a way to where it keeps that to a minimal, and it uses those resources the best it can, instead of just spamming those just out the wazoo. Alright, so my fifth reason why you should play Otherworlds is because you can create the character that you want. You're not hindered as much as other systems. It's a science fantasy game, so I mean you can be a magic user, you can be a guy dual wielding 2 submachine guns. I work very hard to all give this context within the game universe itself, because I'm not a huge fan of, I'm not trying to be like like the quote-unquote Lego RPG where you throw in Batman with Superman with Sora from Kingdom Hearts thrown in with Slade Wilson from DC, and I keep naming DC people. Just you get what I'm saying, like just throwing in all of these people from all these different genres into this. I'm not trying to do that, although you very much can do that in this system easier than any others. Just saying. But there is a story and there is reasons for all these different characters, because the theme of the game is that you're exploring these different worlds and these different universes. It's all about the adventure and all about seeing these unique things. So you get to create some really unique characters out of this. Which brings me to my sixth and final point that I'm making in this video, is that the scaling in this game is very it's built in such a way to where you won't be super high level and you can jump off of a skyscraper and not take any damage, or if in fantasy terms, if you jump off a gigantic mountain and not take damage, just because the cap for falling damage doesn't even really affect you once you become such a high level. It also makes it so, like in the game, you just have to add all these extra dice and you have to add all these extra things, and it makes the game become way more complicated, which in return makes the game way slower, which in turn makes you get pulled out of the story and out of the experience, and makes it so that higher levels aren't as fun as they should be to play, because you have all these new abilities that you can't really put to good use because it's being overcomplicated by the system itself. So Otherworlds is built to give you these additional advantages as you gain levels, but just because you go from level 1 to level 15 doesn't necessarily mean that your health is multiplied by a huge amount. Your experience reflects what you learn and what you take in, so you gain new abilities, but it doesn't necessarily make you Superman healthy. So with that being said, I hope you're a little bit more interested in playing Otherworlds, finding out more about it. If you are interested, stay tuned, because Otherworlds is, although it's been hindered a bit, it will be released next year. That I can promise. And so just hang on tight, because I'll be right there I promise, because I've worked way too hard on this to give up, and so I won't. But until next time, see you guys later. It's been fun. Bye.